So I've been anxious to get started on some other videos rather than just the walk around. And I'm frankly, glad to be done with that. Um, so I'm just going to jump right into, yeah, I could start from the beginning and go through all the interactions and stuff, but it needs to be fun for me too, you know. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with one of the odder things that's influenced me and is still influencing me, and that's glyphs. Uh, According to Wikipedia, a glyph, in the easy short term, is a symbol, and that's just what I've been looking at. I guess I'm going to tell this story, so why don't you go with me to Salt Fork State Park and we'll sit under a canopy at the group camp, and I'll tell you the story while we watch the fire and listen to the rain lightly falling on the tarp. Let's go.
So to understand about the glyphs, you have to understand at least the amount of stuff that was going on when I first got onto them. Fall of 2016, I was home every day, had no license, had no wheels. I was recovering from being ill. I didn't have a lot to do. And I'd had a friend come over, and we went out. His first day I met him, and I'd talked to him on the internet, so and then on the phone for a couple hours, talking about squatching. And he came over on a Saturday, and we walked my property, and as we got out into the east leg, he gave a whoop. He's been whooped at from close range, and he's practiced repeating it. And to me, it was a challenge. And we call that the resulting 15 minutes, we call that the knock war. And I'm sure I'll go into that on a video at some point. But after that, I knew there was something, it's obvious that there's critters running around here. As time progressed and I began documenting the structures and the happenings, the experiences, and interactions I was having, there came a time I would walk outside and I'd turn. I start out by turning hard right off my steps and going right directly into the pines, turning right again, and working my way back behind the house within the woods. And that would bring me out on the trail running behind the structures inside the woods. So I was going through there and looking over the structures. Over time, some things began appearing on both sides of that trail. Structures and stuff. So, and then I would walk around through the woods to the defile. I might turn left and go down to the ledge, or right and go either across the creek and over into the east leg, or instead of crossing the creek, bear right, stand on the house side of the creek, go around the front of the barn, and back up to the house. During this time, I had to coin a couple phrases for things I had no words for, and it did not know no terms. One of the things I came up with was what I called attention energy. Now, doing this every day, sometimes twice a day, your head's kind of getting on that page. And I'll never know the ins and outs of it. All I can tell you is I started perceiving what looked like an aura around structures. There's a big X back there. And I guess that's enough of a runner-up. So let's go back to turning right off the porch. I had done that several days in a row. There's a choke point between the pines and the trailhead behind the structures. And you really, to get there because of property lines and the way the trees are and the underbrush, there's a choke point right through there. And one day, well, let me back up a little bit more. So I'm going out the door and turning right. And most of the time, for like a week, as soon as I open that door and step foot on my deck, I'd hear a wood knock from deep in the east leg. And over time, the only thing I could figure, I even went out there at times and tried to look through the woods to see our front door. Man, and from the distance that it sounded like it was coming from, that was very, very difficult, if not impossible. So finally I got to the point where it seemed obvious that somewhere back in that, farther than you can see on the ground, the front door, there was a booger up in a tree, or more than one, watching my front door. So that every time I walked out, it had a clear view, and a wood knock resulted, whether it was the booger in the tree, or he was giving a high sign to his bud on the ground, or just jumping out of the tree, or climbing down the tree himself and doing it. I don't know. But creak, open the door, little step, down, step on foot on the deck, knock. After about a week, they quit knocking when I came out. And that kind of freaked me out in itself. And you can file this little bit of knowledge under habituation. They got used to me coming out the door and knew what I was going to do, and it didn't bother them anymore. And a habituation is going to be another video that I do. At least a talk. Because, man, it's like an onion. Layers. At least in my experience. But I digress. So, after about a week, I was walking through the woods. I guess entering the choke point. The top of the choke point in the pines. And I looked down. and I noticed this arrangement of sticks right exactly in the middle. I mean, I could have stepped on it easily if I hadn't seen it. And it seemed to have an aura around it. Not that you could take a picture of, but it was fairly glowing with attention energy. Okay. So you may wonder, what is attention energy? What causes it? And who the hell knows? I can tell you that I have a theory. And it's one of two. My theory is actually one of two things. Either the Squatches are so focused on the things they do that they want someone, person, other Squatch, raccoon, to notice. Their minds are strong, and their focus is razor sharp. So when they put their mind to something and let their hands carry it out, there's such a focused amount of energy in that with very little training, one can perceive it. And this seems to be correct. I have found stuff on videos that just I don't even have to see that. It's not a thing of seeing that glow anymore. Just things stand out to me, you know. I've become interested in species-wide behaviors. And so I read a lot of credible reports, everything, you know, that, especially things that pertain to questions that I have, of course. If you're lounging by the fireside with your eyes closed at this time, crack an eye and look at the screen. This is the first glyph that I saw. Now, at that time, there were people saying that this resembled a ancient Chinese symbol for friend. Well, you know what? Ask yourself logically, in this century, at this time, do you think that these hominids would know an ancient Chinese symbol? Let's stretch out a little bit and say that they came from China and they knew knew that symbol, and they just keep handing it down. I'm not there. I ain't biting. I'm from Missouri. Show me. To me, though, I mean, it was obvious it was placed there purposefully, and it had meaning. You know, a lot of times I take pictures of stuff, and I might have it up on my laptop, and I might be working, doing things around, maybe cleaning weapons or fooling with the camera, anything like that. And you get a look at, a glance at your laptop screen just because you're thinking about it while you're doing it. And that happened. I looked at it. I probably looked at that thing a million times. There's something there. It's a mystery, and I wanted to know about it, of course. Well, I happened to look at that picture up on my laptop screen from a weird angle one day, and it suddenly hit me. And I looked closer. Of course, it resembles an A. We all see that. A capital A. But what hit me was, it was a stick figure of a person. Do you see it? And I looked closer, and this picture was taken about, I'll say, 3-4 days, maybe a week after it appeared. Okay. So it had a little time on it. You can see there's pine needles, kind of, a few little pine needles laying on it. But how much of that is part of what was purposely placed there? And I got to looking at the bottom crossbar, and it looks to me, if this is a stick figure, it looks to me like one of the feet is behind the log, or behind that crossbar. And going a step farther, if that's a stick figure, it's stepping over a log. Do you see it? When I saw that, I got like a cold chill, like a head rush. And right there, I think I learned something. They were not only saying stick people, they were introducing themselves. I think there might even be a clan name there. And that is, you could put a couple interpretations on it. A stick figure stepping over a log, Well, step over log people, doesn't sound very likely. Doesn't flow, But what about fallen log clan? So that's kind of the way I think about these guys here. And this is the first time I've ever said anything about it, and really in public. A few of my friends have heard it, but it's just one of the many avenues you can get into when talking about squatches and squatching and experience. Maybe I've learned something there, and that got me looking for glyphs. It seems like there were 2 or 3 others. Maybe I didn't take a picture of them. Maybe I lost the picture. Maybe I haven't looked far enough through my pictures to find them. I changed my route. Instead of turning hard right off the deck, I started walking up the driveway about 50 yards, where we've got a little place you can back into the woods. Even as I was working on this video and then cutting and editing, looking really close at the pictures, more things started to stand out to me. And that is, there were a couple of more pieces that could be part of this glyph, and I hadn't considered that, so I'm going to have to chew on it for a while. You look at the green additions there, you'll see what I'm talking about. And after about 3 days of doing that, the new section, after the turnaround, the new section of my path, after the turnaround, heading toward the back, another glyph appeared. But it wasn't the same one. And for the life of me, I cannot remember what it was, and I have not found any pictures of it. Maybe I didn't take any. But you gotta understand my state of mind. I'm kinda in shock from revelations from noticing all this stuff that I've never noticed before. Hearing things and trying to keep an open mind, trying to train myself to keep an open mind. And yes, you can do that. At the same time, a couple other things appeared that I can't rightly call glyphs, but they were right along the same part of the path. And then I'll show you those, and then I'd like to go on and show you out back. I really don't have much of a clue on most of these coming up. They are what they are. This manipulated vine, it isn't the first one. It is one of the simpler ones, but it isn't the first one I've seen around here. And then this bow kind of speaks for itself. But when we get around back, then there's some more back there that I might have a clue on. We'll talk about that when we get there. So this bow showed up around that time. Check the timestamp. What's interesting is the low end is about a foot off the ground. I don't see any possible way that could have fallen. You'd have just had to stick it tree to tree and pull it or walk it until it bowed and held itself in there. That's so odd that I don't think a person would even think of that. I don't know. But it's really interesting. So this thing here, as soon as I looked at that, it seemed obvious what it was about. It looks like a rifle with a scope. Well, we don't hunt. And I took that as a question. Like, why don't you use a rifle with a scope? However a Squatch might look at that. Or they're making some kind of comment on it. And that's about the only hint I got on that. I think that's still out there. The last one, the bow, is not out there anymore. There's a small X out there now, about 4 feet tall, right behind my shed. Anyway, so I thought that was interesting enough to be inclusive on this discussion. So now that we've got around back, I've got this strip of black rubber fence, one strand, and I've had it up there for years. I'd put it up just inside the woods to keep my horses from running into the neighbor's hayfield or back in the woods. On these pictures, too, pay attention to all the timestamps, because they're all occurring within about the same week. This one, there was a new break in that fence. I just took it as the Squatch is saying, hey, we needed to go through here, so we just broke it. So this would be the main, what I took as the main part of the glyph. But on closer inspection, I started wondering about sublevels. I've used a succession of colored lines over top of the components of the glyph, which you'll see as we go along, to discuss the connections, the sublevels. And the more I looked, the smaller the sticks got, until they were the size of leaf stems, and that got crazy. So I had to pull back a little bit and look at the one other thing that really stuck out. So look at the different color lines, the connections that are being made. I've highlighted them in several spots. Look at the yellow, look at the orange. I mean, it's just like I said, the green, the more I look, the closer I look, the more I find it. And it just got to the point where, as I said, I just had to draw back and try and make a more wider assumption, I guess. So after looking all this over and deciding that this was the main body of the glyph, the thing that led me to the secondary levels and smaller was the thing that still stood out to me, and that was right here in the purple. So what I'm seeing circled in purple there, well, does this ring any bells? I've noticed through observation of structures and the type of sticks the Squatches use to build and communicate with, that there's a common denominator in the type of things they use. And I think that's part of what helps me see things and makes things stand out to me, that started with the attention energy glow, I guess you'd call it. And over time, I didn't have to see the glow anymore. It just makes, stuff just pops, So, look here. This is the same type of, it's very small, of course, but it's the same type of thing that the Squatches have repeated. There's one out, you might remember from the Rim video, that corner, okay? And also, I'd said something, had a little bit about it on the video before that. And there is an A-type structure, and it disappeared, gone. The logs are nowhere to be found. But I pasted out, and it was 33 and a half feet long, okay? It had a crossbar, and at one time, it was sectioned above the crossbar and into the tip, and in each of the sections had a different type of stick formation. Like one of them looked like a S that the Flintstones made, okay? But another one was something else, yeah. And the pictures are on there. You got to look close. I had a hard time taking pictures of that thing because it was so big. And I took the pictures over several different days. Also, as we get farther into the glyphs out back here, you're going to see some of these secondary connections. I think it's yellow. I'm not looking at the picture at the moment. But some of those sticks just have a look to them. And maybe I'm reaching. Maybe I'm full of shit, But, man, I don't believe in coincidences, and even less in Squatch country. And when these things are popping to me, I don't know. I don't think they're especially meant for me or for people. They're just meant because that's how they communicate, and that's it. And I think if we can put our minds together and talk about these things over a wide area, I think we're going to find there's a lot of species-wide behaviors that are constant